Hey everybody, this is Daniel Tate here. You might know me from the Instagram account, The Flyer Vault, where we always do a deep dive into Toronto's epic music history. And today we got something very special lined up for you. I want to introduce you to my co-host, also my co-author for the Flyer Vault book, Professor of Music at York University, the one and only Rob Bowman. Thanks for joining us.
Happy to be here.
All right, now the man in front of me obviously needs no introduction because he changed the face of music. He goes by many different names: Starchild, Dr. Funkenstein, DJ Pooper Scooper, the Atomic Dog, basically the man of the mothership, the man who invented P-Funk and G-Funk. Thank you for joining us, the one and only George Clinton.
Good to be here.
Thanks for having us.
See you again, too.
Yeah. I feel like the stars have aligned to get us to this point. I've been so interested in your history because I learned about you through hip-hop. And I learned about you through all these West Coast rappers and producers, and some on the East as well, and trying to understand where this G-Funk sound came from. The way me and this man met was also through you. Because when I was doing this Flyer Vault project, I had found out that you had lived in Toronto. And that blew my mind. And so, because he's the resident historian of Toronto, I called this man up. And we ended up sitting down in a coffee shop talking about George Clinton's history in Toronto. And I was blown away. And in fact, I went on a mission to find flyers and posters that related to the Parliament and Funkadelic sound. So I'm just very glad that we had this full circle moment.
Good to be here.
That's amazing. So let's go back in time, Rob.
Well, of course, we could go way back in time, but I think we're going to start with 67, when Testify hit on Revlon. And that's really the first hit single. I'm sure that gave you the ability to start touring in other places.
Right.
How soon after that did you get to Toronto?
That would have been, the record came out in 67. We were in Toronto 68.
And were you already playing border towns like Windsor and stuff like that?
No, that was the first tour we were on. I mean, far as, out of the States, put it that way. We toured around New Jersey and New York. Prior to that, when I was actually working at a barbershop.
Sure.
But we was touring even when we were right out of school. We were still playing locally in Jersey and New York and around that area. Testify came out in 67. We went to Detroit. Iggy Pop, MC5, Ted Nugent, all of us had the same agent.
Oh, wow.
So we toured together a lot, and so Toronto, the Hawk's Nest was probably the first place we came in, played the Hawk's Nest in London, Ontario, and Windsor.
I was going to ask what you remember about that first time in Toronto. What the audience was like, what the Hawk's Nest was like.
Wow. Well, at that time, everybody was leaving the States, trying to dodge the draft. So we saw a lot of people that we knew from the States. I had wondered where they went. They had disappeared, but they had come here to get away from the draft.
Of course.
So that first night, we ran to a lot of people that we knew, and at that particular time, LSD was hitting it.
Big time.
Big time. Everybody was walking around blind and beautiful. And we had no idea what it was. We from the barbershop, we thought we was players and gonna be pimps, and we thought we was Motown. Because, we wanted to, I wrote for Motown prior to that.
Sure you did.
But we didn't get a record out with Motown.
Right.
So we wanted to be a Motown artist with the suits. So we came up here with the suits the very first time.
So your first gig in Toronto was at the Hawk's Nest.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to bring our first piece here because it's relating to the Hawk's Nest.
Yeah. Big land music, Ron Scribner. Oh, wow. I can tell you, this reminded me right away, Stone Soul Children. Diane Brooks.
Right.
Remember that name?
Yeah.
She was from my hood in Newark. She lived on Governor Street. And they had a record out probably 1959.
Diane had a record in 59?
With 5 Pennies, a girl
Wow.
group. a girl group, and they were like the Ikeettes.
Right.
Yeah, they had a hit record. So when I came up here and I saw her, that was one of the first people. She had already moved here. Okay. And
did you play at the Cock Door also, or just?
Yeah, we played the Cock Door later. We played the Hawks Nest most of the time. And I forget what year, but we played the Cock Door later. We played the Hawks Nest.
So what was the vibe like? You had the all ages teenage club downstairs, and then you had the tavern upstairs.
Yeah, the teenagers was upstairs, and Ronnie Hawkins and his crew was all downstairs. Most of these people played. Andy Camo, yeah.
Which did you prefer, playing upstairs or downstairs?
Upstairs. Those were the kids. They were the wild.
They were wild, huh?
Yeah, they was wild. Everybody else was serious rock and roll, serious art and blues, grown folks music. But we had Testify was a bubblegum record. It was a pop record, so it was a hit. So, but all of it was cool. Silhouettes. Who else? Sweet Inspiration. Whitney's mother.
Right.
I worked with her.
Sissy.
Wait.
Whitney
Sissy?
Houston.
Hold on. Where? Which band?
Sweet Inspiration.
Sweet Inspiration.
The Sweet Inspirations had Whitney's mom in the band?
Yeah.
Yeah, Sissy Houston. They did background all sorts of Atlantic
So
records.
basically, Sissy Houston was up in Toronto in '69 playing at the Hawks Nest.
They were big.
On the left side here, these are American acts who would come in for a week at a time.
Right.
Whereas these guys all lived here. And Ron was managing them as well as booking them.
Yeah. Sweet Inspiration was pretty famous in like 59, 58, 59. They were already big. They went with Elvis. They was Elvis background singers.
Right.
And then they did solo albums for Atlantic as well, and one for Stax later on.
Mm-hmm.
So would you say Hawks Nest and the Cock Door was sort of like the music headquarters in that era on Yonge Street for you guys?
Oh, yeah, at that time, yeah. It was years later before we played, like Blue Note and other places.
And would you see Ronnie a lot?
Ronnie Hawkins?
Yeah.
He was here very seldom. They was out on the road, mostly down south.
Yeah.
And but we saw him. Oh yeah, we saw him. Whenever it got wild downstairs, we knew he was in town. Because they was wild. That was a wild crew.
I hear Ronnie Hawkins knows how to party.
Oh yeah, we were too young for that.
Ron Scribner is a name that I hear a lot, and he sounds like an unsung hero or legend.
He really was.
Of the city.
He actually was the one that not only did he book us, he was the one I confided into when I realized that Motown was over, the doo-wops and the suits was over, and we had to change the styles. We had played with a group in Connecticut, was called Vanilla Fudge.
Oh, I remember them very well. Sure.
Vanilla Fudge. And we saw their clothes, we saw their amplifiers, the big Marshall amps. I realized myself, this is what I knew Jimi Hendrix as Jimmy James. I knew him with the Isley Brothers. I knew him with King Curtis.
Little Richard, too.
Yeah, I knew him prior to being Jimi Hendrix. But when he went to Europe and came back with his hair frizzed out and was playing the feedback, and we didn't know what that was. Had no idea. But when we saw the Vanilla Fudge, we heard the sound. I said, that's what he's using. Mm-hmm. Ronnie and I realized that you dress up like these guys, you can get a hit album and you don't have to have a hit single. And you can tour, and that's what we did with this album right here.
Yeah, what a classic.
Yeah. We did America Eats Us Young, we did the album in Manta Sound recording studio here. We did the cover here, the liner notes. We'll probably talk about that later.
Yeah, we're going to.
Yeah, but this was the album that Ronnie and I realized I could do a group and not have to have a hit single.
We talk about like cosmic coincidences. One of the many things that blew my mind as I was researching for this interview was when I realized that I live 1 block away from Manta Sound.
Oh yeah.
I was like, damn, it's right there on Adelaide. I live on Richmond, and that was another mind blow.
Yeah, we just wrote about it yesterday, and I remember the area. I couldn't remember which because
They call it Old Toronto. That's the area.
Yeah, that's the school.
The Toronto drugs were pretty good, eh? They must have been, because I'm hearing about the Toronto weed, the Toronto acid, and Toronto acid powered this album.
Yeah, we didn't know nothing about acid prior to that. We didn't know that was just happening. 67, 66 was when that jumped off.
So there wasn't acid in Detroit?
Well, we weren't from Detroit. We were from Jersey.
But you were living in Detroit before you came?
No, we was only going there to record.
Oh, so okay.
We were still living in
Plainfield.
In Jersey. I moved to Detroit and then here.
Right.
But when the record first came out, we were still in Jersey. And there was weed, lots of weed,
Sure.
Kids that drank wine and smoked weed, that was about it. But once we got to Detroit, that whole psychedelic era jumped off. And like I said, Motown started peaking at that moment. And once we got here, I brought the band from Jersey, because the other thing that was big, there was heroin in Jersey. That was like, for older people, it was heroin. So I brought the kids, Gary Scheider, Boogie, Bernie Worrell. I brought all of them here to keep them from getting caught up in the heroin.
To get away from the heroin.
Yeah, because we were older than them. We had just missed that. That wasn't enticing to us. The weed was cool, but we didn't want them to get caught up in that. They was all 16, 17 years old.
So was the first time that you ever did LSD here in Toronto?
Yep.
And how was it?
Oh, man, walking down Yonge Street, seeing people, everything was beautiful, like they said.
Now, speaking of Yonge Street, what do you think of this?
Oh, Club Blue
Tell
Note.
us about Club Blue Note.
That was years later, too, when we played there. And that was an old picture at that time. That picture had to be...
This was 69, the ad.
The ad is there, but the picture was older.
Oh, much older.
Because there's 3 people on there that weren't in the band when we played. That picture was taken when we did music, the first Funkadelic album.
So this is more of your doo-wop era.
No, it's right after the doo-wop era.
Oh, okay.
This is the first psychedelic era.
Yeah.
So you can look at the costumes we got.
Things
on
have
there.
changed by then.
Yeah, we had changed then, but that was the first Funkadelic record. That was the music for my mother, I Bet You, and all that stuff.
Yeah. What do you remember about Club Blue Note?
It was a jazz type club at first. We didn't play that but a couple of times. I don't remember too much about that. But the picture, the drummer was Ennis, Sparky was the saxophone player, and John Jenkins was one of the singers. All 3 of them had left after the record came out, before we got to the Hawks Nest.
Calvin was in the Army then?
Calvin was still in the Army.
That's why John Jenkins was there.
John Jenkins was there.
Now I'm going to find out, when you first came here, I know there's this big transition from the standard R&B group wearing the suit to you going free-form, psychedelic.
That's what I'm saying.
Grady wearing the Arab jalaba, you doing the bed sheet thing. The first time, though, were you still wearing the suits? Or
we were still wearing the suits the very first time.
That's what I wanted to get.
Yeah, we were still wearing the suits the very first time. And then I remember Ronnie, and that's why I was looking at the names on that first thing you brought. Because there was a group here, not the Stone Soul Children, but a version of that group. Mm-hmm. Joe Pep and all the Prakash John.
Oh, right, of course.
It was the first version of that group. They used to wear robes and things, and the lead singer had left them or something, but they were really popular with no records out.
Right.
And so that's when I realized, okay, we got to get psychedelic, but it's got to be a meaning to it, not just psychedelic. So then Ronnie said, not a meaning, just do it. Because we came from a barbershop, which we call ourselves, we made people cool. We did hair, so we knew how to do hair according to dress, the way people dress, so we knew styles.
Right.
But it wasn't about being stylish. It was about anti-style. It was like hippies wore jeans with holes cut and patches said, fuck you on the side. So we realized the kids was anarchy. They wasn't trying to be what their parents was.
Right.
So we realized that's what it's about. But it had to be fun, not just doing it as a political statement. We clowned it. So we did stupid shit.
And Ron encouraged this.
And Ronnie and I, he encouraged. He knew I had enough clown in me to actually pull it off. He told me about this guy that had this band and how they had followers and everything. And I realized, okay, that's what we need, because we're not going to chase 45s trying to get hit single. we did first with dashikis and things, but we actually went with the diapers and sheets.
Yeah, Gary and his diaper. And...
I did the diaper first.
Oh, you did a diaper first?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Because Gary wasn't with us then. Gary didn't get with us until after this record came out.
Well, right.
Yeah, but we did the diapers, the sheets, and naked. We did all of that. You know, and we were just like, but psychedelic as hell. Eddie Hazel was a Jimi Hendrix at about 17 years old. He was all of that. Okay. So we could actually pull it off, the psychedelic sound. He was a gospel singer. And,
but this eclectic P-Funk fashion sense came from here? Came from Toronto?
Yeah, the whole concept of what we did was funkadelic. Once we stopped doing the routines and everything, that was right.
And so do we have good fashion stores up here and clothing stores that you would buy clothes at? Or?
Oh, that Mr. Man, Master John, all along Young Street there. The boots that I just did with Fluval, John, the guy that owned the John Fluval. We talked about this. He was impressed by the shoes from Toronto at that time, too.
Wow.
He was up. We bought all the platform boots. If you see those old pictures, you'll see a lot of it is from...
Those are Master John's, all those boots, right?
Yeah, Master...
I remember those boots in the window there.
Yeah, with the stars on the side.
So there must have been a thriving community of fashion designers in Toronto around that time.
For that era, that when Sgt. Pepper came out and everybody started wearing like that clothes, you could all up and down Young Street you could find that. Matter of fact, Bernie Worrell and his wife Judy, both of them worked at Master John.
Bernie worked in the store?
Yeah. But we was
just to make extra bread?
Yeah, you had to do anything you could to Gary and them lived. Gary and Boogie and myself every now and then. Remember Rochdale?
Right, of course. I wanted to ask you about Rochdale.
We got to talk about Rochdale.
Oh, sex, drugs, and rock and roll?
Let's talk about it.
We weren't even supposed to be in there because I guess it was for the college kids.
Right.
We stayed there. We lived there. We was there. I mean, you get on the elevator and people be partying on the elevators.
So when you say you lived there, do you mean you hung out there a lot? Or did you
No, we stayed with people that lived there.
Right.
We stayed in their rooms with them. We weren't supposed to be there, but we was in there. Gary and Boogie stayed probably 6 months to a year.
But why was Rochdale College so special or different for those who don't know? Like, what's the story of Rochdale College?
I could never figure it out. It seemed like the college built it. I never could figure out how they could get away with it. The police weren't allowed to come in there.
Yeah. Was it a commune? Like what?
No, it was
a university residence.
It was a university residence for kids that went to college.
That just got, quote, out of hand as far as the university was concerned.
So a college for special kids.
No, it's just regular kids.
Regular kids. They just turned it special. They got so in charge of everything that they kept the police out. It was just one of those situations, and they were very smart kids.
Yeah.
But that was the era. The Vietnam War allowed everything to go. Everything that protests that war, they was doing. And since everybody was so guilty in the government for that war, they couldn't say too much to the kids about whatever they was doing in the name of peace and love.
Right.
And that whole thing, all the way up to when John and Yoko came in.
Right.
John and Yoko.
On it, all of that.
Got another one for you. All right, so 1969. What's popping this weekend? And this is September 12th, 1969. We got you and your guys at the Hawk's Nest rock to the rhythms of the Parliaments and Funkadelic. Mm-hmm. The next day at Varsity Stadium, the Toronto Rock and Roll Revival with Bo Diddley, Gene Vincent, Chuck Berry, Chicago, Whiskey Howell, Alice Cooper, and the Doors. And they didn't even know yet that John was coming and Yoko.
Right.
But a couple days, were you there?
No, we weren't. We didn't go to that show, but that weekend or whatever that was, Toronto was lit.
Lit.
Everybody.
Tell us about it.
And I mean, if you remember, you wasn't there. It was
Facts.
It was like that, and they just showed up, and like the word was out that on the news they was here and whatever was going on. But like I said, I can't remember exactly what happened, but I knew that was a wild one. That was a wild.
The city was on that weekend.
Yeah, I stayed at Ron's house up on was that Don Mills?
He lives in Don Mills. Yeah.
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 Don, I stayed at his house, and I can still see, looking out the window, I can see you know how you have flowers that's in designs, and tripping, looking down from like the 8th, 9th floor, looking down on the flowers. They was all, you know, tripping my ass off. And yeah, that week was
September '69, man.
Yeah.
What a time! Right, a month after Woodstock.
Yeah, colleges kept us together. That's when Ron had a real good college connection. He booked us in all the major colleges. There was at McGill.
Right.
You know, we was up in Montreal all the time. That was London, Ontario.
Western and London. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's where Tall Ross sort of spun out.
Yeah. Boy,
This guy knows.
oh my God, dude. He's right about that. What was it? It was,
London Gardens, maybe.
no, it was the Edgewater.
Oh, right. Edgewater Hotel.
Edgewater
that?
Hotel and Edgewater
Inn. Yes.
Where was that?
London.
London. It was like an amusement park around the area.
So London had its old party scene.
Oh
too.
my God! All of in St. Catherine. Is that St.
Sure,
Catherine?
yeah.
And what's the other
At
one?
Brock University in St. Catharines.
Yeah, and the place in the club where they walk around in a circle all night long.
Oh, I don't know about
Around
that.
the bar, they around the floor. That was a routine. Everybody, you know, you skate like a
A
skate.
roller skating jam.
But they wasn't roller skating. They walked.
This was St. Catharines. Crazy.
Yeah, in Hamilton.
Right.
Yeah, both.
McMaster University.
Yeah, both of those, and that was a trip. You know, all this was like, we were like much of a fan of this than they were. We were a little older. We had to be 24, 25. Most of the kids was 19, 18.
So you were not just a Toronto man. You were doing all of Southwest Ontario.
Oh no,
You were doing the whole circuit.
Oh, we
up
did
here.
all of Ontario.
This is a working band.
Working
No, we
band.
worked I mean, Ronnie had us booked pretty much all the time. And like I said, I forget the little small cities, but there was a lot of little cities in between.
Yeah. And since you brought up Ron, there's one more Ron piece I want to show you. There he is. The young men who keep rock rolling. And that is March 9th, 1968. And you can see Ron right there. And that's Bob McAdory, the Chum music director. Do you remember Bob McAdory?
I remember the name. Wow.
Yeah.
What was it? Blood, Sweat, and Tears. What was his name?
David Clayton Thomas. Yeah.
He was here at that time.
Yeah, with the Shays.
Yeah, right. And then the other one that went country western, Kenny Rogers. In the first edition.
Right.
That's what we played with them here a lot. I remember when he left and went solo, but I
And they changed completely
just
from
dropped
the
in to see what condition my
condition was in. Right.
That was like, wow. That was like one of the artsiest songwriters. Because, you know, I thought nobody could beat Smokey Robinson writing songs, or Holland Dozier, Holland and Barry, people at Motown.
Right.
But when I saw Kenny and all that stuff he was doing with the first edition, before he went solo, and then him and what's the name from Commodores,
right,
Lionel Richie, they got together and did a lot of stuff. But yeah.
So I actually once found an ad for the Commodores playing at the Colonial Tavern.
Oh yeah,
sometime in the late 70s.
Yeah, we played the Colonial Tavern.
Yeah. But one thing about this article that I love is that quote there where it says, "If Scribner handled you, you were sure of working steadily and making money."
Oh yeah. No, he definitely did that even when you had no records. Because like I said, we worked out of the concept of not just a hit record, but an act. He put together, we had an act. And once we did this record here, America Eats Us Young, from then on we knew that we had to do albums and make concepts of the album. Because we had watched, Pink Floyd. We was watching Jimi Hendrix. Jimmy only had 3 albums out.
Before he passed, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, all his stuff was live shows. But those 3 albums put him in the position to be most rock and rollers want to be today. That kind of guitar player, and that's what
Were you
Ronnie was
influenced?
good.
Were you influenced a lot by Pink Floyd?
The concept of the mothership, the fact that they built them big productions. That record they had out was Dark Side of the Moon.
Dark Side of the Moon, right.
That record was, 15 years on the charts?
It was an unbelievable record, yeah. My first cover story was interviewing them when I was 16 on that tour.
Yeah, that record was on the top of the chart for 15 years. So yeah, I was influenced that's what you had to do, an album. Once you did an album, they didn't have to hit when you put them out. Albums last over the years, and each year they get more popular.
Right.
I mean, like today, Free Your Mind, Your Ass Will Follow. We knew that wasn't going to be a hit record because we went too crazy on purpose. 3 days of recording it on acid. We knew what we were doing. And so 25 years later, which is what I said, it always become popular when it crossed over in Europe or somewhere and come back. 25 years later, I met the Chili Peppers.
Yeah.
And their favorite album was Free Your Mind, Your Ass Will Follow. They were into that and calling it punk. It was basically what we were doing punk. And I pretty much got that notion from Iggy Pop. Because we was on tour and we used to wonder, how the hell can they get away with this? But that was the vibe. The psychedelic. It was almost church for rock and roll, to be crazy, tearing up stuff. And so we got a version of that.
So when you first came here and you were dressed in the suits, how did the audience react?
They were cool. I mean, they was used to it. They were liking the doo-wop groups that came from Motown. That was still popular.
Right.
But it was funnier when they saw us coming in suits first and then come back in diapers.
That's what I was going to ask. So when you came back, how did the reaction change?
They really liked us then. They really, a lot of radio stations wasn't trying to hear that. They wasn't trying to even hear Free Your Mind and none of those. They weren't going to play that. Not even I Bet You, even though it became a hit record with Jackson 5 later.
Right.
But they wasn't trying to hear that from us at that time. Once we did it, we changed the Temptations, where we was trying to be like them. They ended up doing Psychedelic Shack, Cloud 9. We got them to do that. Right. We got Stevie to go into his psychedelic, not psychedelic, but that kind of
funky clavinet thing that he did.
Clavinet. Yeah, that was Bernie's. Bernie was phenomenal with that. Wasn't nobody playing it then. Not even Billy Preston and Sly wasn't even around yet.
No, Bernie was way ahead of his time.
Yeah.
What can you tell us, George, about the Process Church?
Does it follow Malachi?
Yep.
Wow, that's weird. That's where Ronnie was his own. He was his own psychedelic. We didn't know what it was. They had some writings that they did the same thing I did with putting good and bad in the same place, and see the contrast between them. It was, what was that? What was it called? The church, and not the Process Church, but it's a fraternity. I mean, it's like the
Rosicrucians.
Rosicrucian.
Which Ron was a Rosicrucian.
Ronnie was a Rosicrucian.
And what was the relationship between that and the Process Church for him?
That was pretty much. I thought it was pretty much the same. Mm-hmm. It seemed like it was the same. It seemed like Freemasonry.
Right.
It seemed like it was a part of, like, the lodge and the temples of Elks Homes and
right. All the secret societies.
Secret societies, and so that all of that kind of like gave me some, damn, I need. But when I read what they wrote and saw how they were the first ones I know to take care of kids, they help mothers with unwedded mothers, feeding kids,
provided breakfasts for kids.
Yeah, they did that, and so I always thought that was really cool. And the stuff they wrote on fear, that's the one I used. I think I used one in this one. I used one in Maggot Brain.
Right.
And it was really positive. Ronnie was like the nicest person in the world. He spoke so soft and everything. But I thought it was a little dark. But they always did so much positive stuff. So it seemed like, okay. And they used to come on the road with us and be helping out. About 2 or 3 years. They followed us to Boston and then Boston, the Mass Ave, where the kids be out in the playground. They fed the kids and everything.
They'd be out there in their robes with the Alsatians.
The dog robes and things.
So if I went back to this right here, April 17th, 1971, and I'm walking the Young Street Strip, I'm basically seeing these folks walk up and down trying to recruit new members, essentially?
Selling your magazines, same thing you would find in New York, other form of the same thing. But they, like I said, they were the Masonic kind of vibe,
right?
And I never would be into any organization like trying to, as a, how you said, not nominated, but inducted into it.
Right.
But I liked the things they were saying.
You were associated, but you weren't an official member.
No.
And I saw in my research that they got a lot of media criticism because the media was trying to portray them as Satan lovers, like a cult of some sort. But was that a fair portrayal?
Well, they used that dog side. They had dogs. They had the dogs.
Those are Alsatian dogs, right? Big Alsatian dogs.
Yeah, they had the dogs.
So they're walking like that on Young Street with dogs.
Yeah, that was part of it.
That's wild.
It was, but what really got us in trouble was as soon as we put this record out, and mainly because we were saying America East is young, Rolling Stone did a review on it, and Manson had just popped up. Manson says his organization was the Church of the Final Judgment, and I think this is the Final Church of Judgment.
The Process Church of the Final Judgment.
Well, the opposite of that, the Final Church of Judgment, was Manson.
Right.
So they tried to
got mixed up with
and
it.
They put that with us and said we was part of that, and it didn't last long. Nobody didn't go for it.
But they were like that. I mean, because I read this inscription here, and a lot of it resonates today. Like a lot of it is beautiful writing.
Read that.
What can we give to our enemies? Love. Love our enemies. Love Satan. Love Satan. What is love? How can we put love into action? Christ help us. It's not easy. How can we break the spiral that is breaking America and is breaking us?
Mm-hmm. And then they did one on fear.
Which was in Maggot Brain, I believe.
That was in Maggot Brain.
Right.
And we used that one too.
So when you used those, did you ask permission from the church?
Oh yeah, they was happy we did it. Once we did it, they started following us around, and that's when they thought we was part of it. The rest of the band didn't even know who they were, but they were just hanging with us, and pretty girls. They was in there with the long robes and
they had a headquarters on Gloucester Street, Young and Gloucester. And did you go there and just
I never went to that. I just saw Ronnie reading the books all the time, and Rosicrucians. I didn't know what that was, but then later on I found the Knights of the Templar and all of that. It was another version of that.
Sure.
And I have been seeing the Lion Club, the Rotaries. Growing up, seeing that in every city you go in the States. What is this? That seemed like pretty weird to me. And this was another version of it.
I wonder what ended up happening with Father Malachi.
I don't know. I don't
Interesting character.
Huh?
Interesting character.
Very interesting. Very interesting. I mean, and it was about, I guess it was about the girls that was with him too.
Yeah,
absolutely.
They was all pretty long black robes, and like I said, they was backstage with us all the time.
So he was your typical charismatic leader.
Huh? And he was that, right. He was just that. And Ron was a version of him almost. Ronnie was almost just a really quiet and soft-spoken. Rick James was up here.
Tell us about Rick James.
At that time. He auditioned for us doing that at that time.
That blew my mind when you mentioned that.
Yeah.
Now, Rick had been playing with Neil Young in a group called the Minor Birds.
Yeah, that was a little earlier than we came up here.
Right. So what was Rick doing when you got up here?
He was just pretty popular. I guess he was hanging out with the Stone Soul Children's too.
Right.
Joe Pep from the Undisputed Truth.
Right, I remember.
Diane Brooks.
Yeah.
And Prakash John, who was with Alice Cooper at the time. He didn't introduce us because we already knew him and Shep, but he actually introduced me to Shep personally. We knew of him back in Pontiac, Michigan, but he introduced her to Shep, and I saw how Shep had set them up so good. With even though the band was broke up, they were all still getting paid from a record company. That nobody do that.
Wow.
Nobody set you up to where you get benefited after you're gone. Everybody in that band was still doing all right. When Alice got popular and these guys up were no longer in the band,
They were still getting paid.
they were still getting paid.
That's crazy.
So
Wow.
I ended up finding Shep, and he ended up being my manager too.
So Shep Gordon was your manager for
Yeah.
a period of time?
Not that time. This was years
This was
later.
later on.
Later, yeah.
This is years later. You know.
Supermensch.
Yeah,
Shep Gordon.
That was my man. Yeah, he actually took me to meet the Dalai Lama.
Yeah, right.
They had us, and the thing was George Clinton and the Dalai Lama in the same place.
I got to find that picture.
Yeah.
So when Rick James actually auditioned for the band?
Yeah.
As a bass
You know,
player or singer or both?
Singer. I didn't even know he played. I never seen him play an instrument.
Okay.
What happened was when we got Bootsy,
Right.
because he came up right after this.
Yeah, he's on film. Well, Bootsy's on Fillmore.
This is
right?
first record with us.
Yeah.
When we went back and became, the mothership and all of that, they wanted Jeffrey Bourne from Motown wanted Holland rather. They wanted to get Bootsy to sign with them, and we didn't let him. So they ended up getting Rick James
To replace Bootsy.
to replace Bootsy, and I saw him with a bass. I'd never seen him with no instrument before, but and he became the Rick James that people know. Rick James in whatever the band was named.
Rick James and Stone's City Band. Yeah.
Stone, and we did that album, Glory Out Stupid. We said Stone Shitty Band. Remember?
I remember. We were
And so
signifying on him.
He
yes.
thought he was the donkey on the front of the cover of the album,
Right.
That was dressed up with the braids. He thought that was him. He went in Tower Records and turned over all of the records, and I told him, "That ain't you. That donkey's cuter than you."
He opened up for you guys a lot, didn't he?
Yeah, later on.
Yeah, when you guys started getting big.
He was in a band called the Minor Birds in Toronto.
What was the group name that came and got on Westbound?
From Montreal.
The guitar player, Mahogany Rush.
Oh, right. And the guitar player was Frank.
Frank.
What was Frank's last name? He played a lot like Hendrix.
Yeah, I played just
He
like
really
him.
wanted that sound.
But it was weird because they say he woke up one morning and was playing like that. He wasn't playing prior. I don't know how much I believe that.
I don't believe it.
They said that he was like all right guitar player prior to that, but he could play everything that Jimmy played. Frank Marino.
That's right.
Frank Marino.
Mahogany Rush.
You get to. I don't believe that. Say if you remember, you weren't there. I remember a lot of stuff.
Now, you just brought up Westbound Records. So, in your autobiography, you wrote that you thought Canadian audiences were a little more sophisticated than American audiences. What made you think that? How did that manifest
We were
itself?
able to get away with rock and roll and R&B at the same time. Either you had to be one or the other in the States. You had to, certain artists, because we were too black for white folks and too white for black folks. So we couldn't get on the radio too easy anywhere. But the people that really liked us, even though they were small amounts, they stayed with us forever like I thought they would with the albums. And Toronto was really easy to do that. It was harder than even Montreal. We played Montreal, and it was basically an R&B crowd.
Right.
It was hard to play funkadelic.
The Esquire Club. And stuff like
Esquire,
that.
yeah. It was hard. It was mostly they were used to R&B people from the States coming in. Here, it was a little different. The only one they knew was Rick James and a few other people that tried to play pop music or rock music. Yeah, and like I said, we could get away with all of it here. That got us used to figuring out how to do both sides of the music and not, be adverse to one or the other.
I've always been fascinated how Toronto was so embracing of all these different sounds and styles in the 60s and in the 70s, and that all manifested on the Yonge Street Strip. Started at Yorkville with the coffee house scene and moved all the way down that strip, and it's like, I wish I could go back in time and experience that.
Well, that's because that was the time that all of that blues set it off. A lot of kids was into blues, and we couldn't figure it out. In the States, blues was old folks.
Right.
That was my mother and father. Up here, it was a young group of mostly white kids playing it.
Right.
And when I saw Eric Clapton, I mean, they really played it.
Sure.
You know, and
They
then
played it good,
when he was talking about what's that black guy named that he, from the 40s?
T-Bone Walker?
No. Not Elmore James.
Robert Johnson?
Robert Johnson.
From the 30s, right?
When he talked about him, he made me feel bad because I didn't know my history on the black music. And when I heard him, then I realized you got to pay attention to the history of all of it. And once I realized that, then I realized, damn, I heard Crossroads?
Yes, Crossroads was a cover of Robert Johnson, which Cream did.
Yeah. And I'm like, damn, my mother used to play this shit all. Then I realized, okay, that's what it, then Eddie was always a little blues gospel sing. That's when I realized you got to learn. I bought him a new guitar. I bought him all the Jimi Hendrix records, all the Cream records, and Sly Stone had just come out. And once he got all of those, we were able to play the blues that he did very well.
Oh, like
even Calvin them hated that because that was like old people music to them.
Right.
You know, but when they saw how it worked, then they realized that, oh, we got something. Ron was really able. I don't know if you see the other picture we took up here. All 10 of us is on the poster together, cartoon style.
Right.
Is that Osmium or?
But it's just fun. It's just Parliament. It's not for an album.
No, it's from an article.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Ron had the guy draw all of us. Tal had the thing on Ron's head.
Right.
But it was all, most of the time we separated Parliament and Funkadelic. You know, only the 5 musicians on the Funkadelic album.
It's fascinating how Toronto's blues scene was so rich that when you came here, you just soaked it all in. Like you were learning about your own music, like blues music in a foreign land, in Canada.
That's when I realized that it was worldly. It was like jazz. It was like jazz. I knew jazz had done that. You could go to Paris and the jazz musician was famous as hell. You know, but not R&B and blues. We got here, we realized, okay, that's why Cream is so popular. And then I look around, but basically what Led Zeppelin is doing is blues.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Almost all of the real good ones.
Pink Floyd started off the blues.
Right. I mean, and the Beatles was just classy. They were just classy. They could do anybody's music. They could do blues, jazz, folk, and they did it all. Then I realized that's what you have to be able to. You have to be able to do all of that music and do it your way. So once we got into Funkadelic, we say we will never be in a bag again. You know, that like people say, that ain't your bag. We don't want to be a bag. So after we did Free Your Mind, Mary Keith is Young, and Osmium, we were able to do any style and people just say, oh, that's Funkadelic.
So in many ways, the Funkadelic sound is the Toronto sound.
Basically, yes. I mean, that's when we got the nerve to go ahead and do it.
Well, this is the pivotal album. This was the one recorded in Toronto.
Yeah.
This is where things totally flipped.
We did all of it here. We had strings.
Bernie's string arrangements.
Bernie was a classical keyboard player. So by him doing the strings, it was just like we thought of Emerson, Lake and Palmer, Yes, and all those groups. Bernie was one of that. So we were able to get away with Biological Speculation and
Joyful Process.
Joyful Process. That was the clavinet. We had just, you know.
First time a keyboard through a wah-wah pedal.
Right.
And you know Stevie heard that.
Yeah, and that he did it.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
What happened? Who threw it? Someone threw it.
Joyful Process, Bernie put his clavinet through a wah-wah pedal. First time anybody done a keyboard through a wah-wah pedal.
They did guitars like that, but they didn't do it. They didn't do
And then if you listen to what Stevie Wonder did shortly thereafter, he's clearly influenced by this.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a great
They
book.
both had a keyboard called the RMI. And he was also the first person to do, with a Moog bass, he played a Moog bass on Flashlight. Nobody had ever done that.
It's such a great sound.
You know, and he was imitating Larry Graham. From
Larry
Sly.
Graham.
Nobody knew
Got slapped.
that's what he was doing. They just doom 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 doom.
So instead of popping, he's doing it on the keyboard.
Yeah. And he was doing
Wild.
it on the bass. So we had a lot of firsts because we was using, like I said, all styles of music
Right.
in funk. Funk to me is whatever it need to be. It could be anything. You can't say that ain't funky. We could do whatever we wanted to. Folk.
Man, you did country stuff. You did the
Yeah,
gospel
little old
thing.
country boy.
Yeah.
And coming from Motown, Barry, one thing he taught all of, if it's a hit, your job is to figure out why it was a hit. Not that you don't like it or you like it or not. Figure out what it is that made it a hit.
And do it again.
And you do that. You know, because we were sitting laughing at something. Does your chewing gum lose its flavor on the bedpost of the night?
Oh my God, yes.
You remember that? Somebody, I don't know who did it, but
Lonnie Donegan.
and we laughed at, like, who would write a dumb song? It ain't about that. It's about why did it hit? And so once you get that into perspective, you're able to, like, make your own versions of that. At least you have the nerve to do it.
Well, and you took the idea of comedy,
Oh, yeah.
and ran with it a very different
Oh, but
direction.
the other thing, the Coasters.
Oh yeah, of course.
Lieber and Stroller was one of my favorite
Brilliant.
songwriters for that group.
They were brilliant.
That was the most brilliant songwriting there was. And I worked at the Brill Building, and the office was like 2 doors down the hall. And I'm looking at Charlie Brown, all that stuff, Yakety Yak.
Little Egypt searching.
Little Egypt come strutting with the button down.
Oh, I love that stuff.
They were so lyrical that you strive to be like that. You strive to want to be able to put words together and play on words. Comedy was it for us. We was wearing the bras and titties and wigs right as soon as Testify came out. We'd be all right in the beginning with the suits, but eventually we'd stuff our church with and come out of this coats, and we'd be sweating all over the place anyway.
And you were doing a lot of performance things. Ron told me you'd come often from the entrance of a place through the audience.
That was our main thing. We would be
Through the audience.
Through the audience. All of us, not the band, but the singers come in through the audience, and you see Fuzzy got on. He's got the long johns with holes in them. And
right.
I got a diaper on, and you climbing over people's table. Your balls hanging around. and you're doing psychedelic gospel.
Amazing.
So you get caught up in the gospel feel of it, the funniness of it, the gyrating on people's table.
So basically, the kids might not know this, but Drake is not the first one to come to the show through the crowd.
Oh, no.
God,
That might be you.
Lots of people did that.
Oh, no, we did that. We came through the crowds. And so people, my theory was, if you make people have to get up and look to see where you at, that caused the commotion that people love to see at a show.
Yeah.
Something's going on. Where's he at? And you see one of them up on the side of the wall, climbing the wall. Another one's on somebody's table gyrating. And the music is church, gospel, and psychedelic.
The tension builds.
Yeah, so all you know is, I don't know what they were doing, but it really was fun. So we had a lot of that. It's still rock and roll, so they loved it.
So this has been an amazing conversation, and to me it's been just so fascinating how Toronto really was like a petri dish of culture and music and fashion that you just really took advantage of to help your creativity flourish. And that really takes us to this incredible piece of work, America Eats Its Young. And you had a question you wanted to ask George.
Well, there's several things here. A lot of things converge in this album. Bootsy singing on Fillmore. How did Bootsy become part of the whole P-Funk ensemble? It happened in Toronto, right?
Yeah, Bootsy's first gig with us was here in Toronto. Session was Fillmore. He came, Billy went to Motown.
Right.
Him and Eddie both went to Motown.
Play with the Temptations.
Play with Temptations, and of course, later on they did Shaky Grounds and all that stuff. But they were with Holland Dozier. Holland, not only Motown, but with Holland Dozier at Hot Wax and Invictus. That's where they went. So Bootsy came first, then he brought his brother, then he brought the whole band.
All the house guests.
All the house guests, because they played with us for a minute. Just for like a couple of gigs. And I realized right then, Bootsy's so Bootsy. He's not a Funkadelic or Parliament. He needed his own thing. So we said we'd make a record. We'd make a record for him. He'd play some things with us. And He played on a few of the gigs, and they actually toured with us for a minute.
So when did Bootsy first arrive in Toronto?
That would have been
in time for this record.
71?
Yeah, time for this record.
Yes.
And Bootsy actually lived here too?
No.
He would come up here and play with you, did some recording with you.
Mm-hmm.
And where did the title Fillmore come from?
It was something that he had, as a song he already had.
Right.
And they did as a group, and we wanted to get him on the album. So we took his song, and Bernie played with him on it.
Right.
And so that actually made it a Funkadelic Parliament song, when he did that. And that was what's the other one they did? I think they might have played, his brother played on Pussycat.
Catfish played on Pussycat?
Pussy. Not Pussycat, but Call My Baby.
Call My Baby Pussy, right,
yeah.
right.
And Frank Waddy, the whole band.
So was Catfish playing the Hendrix stuff at the beginning of that? Of Call My Baby Pussy?
I think that might have been Harold Bean.
Right, that's
Harold Bean.
I always assume.
That's an interesting name.
Harold Bean was
Tell us about Harold Bean.
Harold Bean was from Memphis. And he was part of the Bar-Kays.
Played on Isaac Hayes, Walk On By.
He played with Isaac Hayes, Walk On By, and all that stuff. There's one picture with all of them on there with the convict suit on.
Right.
And the big fuzzy hats. They was with us for a year, probably.
So Harold came up here.
He came up with Bootsy.
From Memphis.
He came up here at the same time Bootsy and them came.
Harold came with Bootsy.
He didn't come with him at the same time.
Did Harold live here as well?
No.
What about Tyrone Lapkin? Because he joined at this point.
Tyrone was from Connecticut, Gut Bucket.
Right.
That was a good jazz rock band. He came, this was his first place time too. When he came, all of them came here around the same time. That's when we met Precast John.
Who's a legendary Toronto bass player.
Bass player here anyway. He was with Alice Cooper.
And how did he become part of this whole thing?
Ron Scribner.
Okay.
And him and Ron knew each other, and we was needing a bass player for a minute, for Boogie got with us. But then right at that same time, Gary played with us for a minute at that time. Boogie, Prakash, Bootsy, all of them is on this record.
And that's why you call that the most eclectic of the Funkadelic albums.
This really was not only everybody played on it, but for us going out with these album covers. This was the last one we did before Pedro Bell started.
Right, who took over on Cosmic Slop.
Yeah.
Speaking of Cosmic Slop, I was walking downtown Toronto a few days ago, listening to that album on my phone, and as I look up, the CN Tower starts turning green. Because it's got the lights.
Oh, yeah.
I look up, the CN Tower, green, as I'm listening to this record.
Oh, wow. That's weird.
Cosmic shit.
And you want to hear something weird? That tower, the tower you got down there, I live right next door to Bob, the guy that designed it.
That's a cool little fun fact.
Yeah, and he also did one in Seattle, I think it was.
So
did he do the Needle in Seattle?
The Needle.
Ah, okay.
And he was the architect or the designer?
The architect.
So
but I'm not sure which one of the architect. I know he designed it. I think he designed it.
Do you remember the CN Tower being built while you were here, like as it was coming up?
Yeah,
crazy.
And his wife and his 2 kids, they was our next door neighbors.
And when you flew in for this trip, you must have enjoyed seeing the CN Tower because it's illuminated. It's a beautiful landmark.
I'm used to seeing it by itself.
By itself.
I'm not used to seeing all these buildings
now
around.
It's surrounded by everything. Yeah.
You can't see it. You have to be really close to it to see it.
Or in the airplane.
I'm used to seeing it. Yeah, I'm used to seeing it across town. From 27 or 4.
You used to see it from the top of the city. You can see it.
You can't see it like that now. Just riding through the city last night, I'm right down on Yonge and all those, and I can't see the tower nowhere. And every once in a while it'll peek up a little bit.
So you were talking about the cover of America Eats Its Young, and it's really kind of interesting. We have the Statue of Liberty. And
I told them what to put on there. The babies, I didn't tell them about the babies, but I wanted the Statue of Liberty and this right here, the needle in the hypodermic needle,
right?
In the Viet Cong
and the American Eagle.
And the American Eagle. I told them to do that.
But flip it over, and they
in the pyramid. Me and Ron did all of this. I forgot who he got to do it, but we did this together. This was I was fascinated by the Knights of Malta, Knights of Columbia. You know, the Lion Club,
right?
All of Brotherhood.
And where did the idea for the title of America Eats Its Young come from?
I don't know. It was all of that Vietnam War stuff going on. And I think I heard somebody say something like that. And I don't know where I got it, but I knew that would be, but I wanted the dollar bill to be.
The funky dollar bill.
The funky dollar bill, I wanted it to be that. You know, I wanted that to be the cause of everything.
Funky dollar bill right there.
It's an extraordinary record cover. And it's in some ways, people talk about it as a concept album. I don't know if you were thinking of it that way.
I definitely was, but I just couldn't stick to the concept.
Right, so it's sprawled everywhere else.
It's all over the place. I didn't get the concept album right, even though I tried to do it a lot, even the Mothership.
Right.
I didn't get that right till we got to Motor Booty Affair, which was the underwater concept.
Right, I remember that tour. Yeah.
All of that was, all the songs related to the topic, you know. But I was trying to do that because I always thought that Sgt. Pepper was one of the best albums there was, you know. And that to me was, whatever the concept was, I felt the concept, even though the songs were all over the place.
Right.
The style of their writing, George Martin producing, it was a record that held true to that brand new style throughout the whole record.
And the concept was really this fake band, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, introducing
it's a band,
and then playing the record.
Yeah,
or playing their set.
I didn't get that part until, but I knew it was something about it that made me know this is a concept record. You know, because all the album rating in that period was good. And, you know, you knew the White Album, the other, all of them.
Sure.
I didn't know which one was which. But when that one came out, they were on another planet. And it really was, it was somewhere between classical and cartoon.
So, George, I'm going to share this with you. And I've marked it down right there. And if you could do us the honors of reciting those lyrics,
Okay.
which are unbelievably wild.
Okay, so you started in the
Powerful.
middle. Let's see if I can remember the first part. A luscious bitch she is true, but it's not nice to fool Mother Nature. The proud mother of God, like all hoes, is jealous of her own shadow. Who is this young big-titted bitch who wished to be queen for a day? Who would sacrifice the great-grandsons and daughters of her jealous mother by sucking their brain until their ability to think was amputated, by pimping their instincts until they were fat, horny, and strung out, in her neurotic attempt to be queen of the universe? Who is this bitch? America Eats Its Young.
Now that's a long way from Testify in terms of writing lyrics.
Yeah.
Tell me about that transformation. It's kind. I mean, we've talked about the change in the appearances, the change in the stage act, but your lyrics got really, really deep and sophisticated.
I don't know. Well, like I said, Smokey had turned me out as a songwriter, and you know, would play on words and things.
But he was still writing love songs.
He was still writing love
Tracks
songs.
of My Tears, Tears of a
This
Clown.
was once I got into America Eats Its Young, and the whole era of that, you know, Vietnam War. I had to try to do that in a way, not necessarily love songs. I wanted my regular songs to sound like love songs, but not talking about love. And that was like probably one of the first ones I started experimenting with lyrics. That was, and I never wanted to be like really negative, you know, bitching about it, but make it scary sounding. This album sounds scarier than it, I mean, looks scarier than it really
Actually,
is.
it's right.
Yeah, I mean, America Eats Its Young sound like it's getting ready to be all kind of
Heavy
crazy.
metal.
But if you notice, balance is my thing. The sun, the wind, and rain must come. Mother, are you know, I'm talking to Mother Nature, and you know, the whole thing. All of this was like poetically I guess the Beatles, it's Beatles. That's what they was doing. They was doing a lot of that stuff.
But this is really socially and environmentally conscious too. Balance.
Yeah.
If you don't like the effects, don't produce the cause. Biological speculation.
Now that one I do nowadays, and people think that is the deepest. To me, we are just a biological speculation sitting here vibrating, and we don't know what we're vibrating about.
That's one of the great
And
lines
the animal instinct in me makes me want to defend me, makes me want to live when it's time to die. Y'all see my point? I don't mean to come on strong, but I am concerned. I believe in God, and I know that law and order must prevail. But if and when the laws of man are not just, equal, and fair, then the laws of nature will come and do her thing. She does not think. She works by instinct. Survival is her thing. Do y'all see my point? That's what I'm saying. When people take something so long that it's no longer them being logical and reasonable and thinking about what they do, they react. And it'd be horrible, when somebody react
Absolutely.
after they've been treated like shit. You can't expect them to be nice about it.
That resonates today.
It resonates.
Right now, it resonates.
That's what I'm saying. I do that one now. It chokes me up. Because then, I think I was tripping my ass off in those kind of things. It was happening then. That was the Vietnam War.
Where did the metaphor of loose booty junkie twist come from?
When dudes that would shoot heroin, they'd be out on the corner, Plainfield Avenue in Plainfield.
Right.
Everybody was doing it. You could look down 3 blocks and you see people, they had their different nods, they'd be nod. And when
That's the junkie twist?
Junkie twist. They would be scratching,
Wow.
Right. They scratch, itch.
Yeah.
And they hear some music. And
you call that the junkie twist?
The junkie twist.
Oh,
The junkie twist.
It's such a great metaphor in that song.
Loose
booty,
booty,
the junkie twist.
It was, and we was actually messing with Eddie.
Oh, because he had some problems.
He would be doing that, and he actually sang that.
But you saw a different twist in Toronto. There wasn't the junkie twist up here. That was more New Jersey, right? Where heroin was a problem. But up here, it was a different twist.
No, up here was that happy drug, whatever it was.
The happy drug.
It was, when everything was beautiful for real, when ugly people were really beautiful too, that's what got me with the acid. You actually laughed, because everybody you saw had a weird smile on their face.
It was that time, yeah.
But it was all
That was
cool.
the acid trip, yeah. And everybody was cool and peaceful.
Peaceful,
and loving.
Yeah.
Now, in Loose Booty and the title track, America Eats Its Young, the vocals are way back in the mix. You nearly can't hear them.
I meant for them to be, I wanted them to be instrumentals, actually.
Right.
And I would just put a little vibe in there just to have some lyrics in it, because instrumentals is hard to get for real played. So you put a little bit of nonsense on there, and they have to analyze it. You have to figure out what you're talking about.
Well, you have to keep listening to get.
You have to keep listening
deeper into it to get
try to get some out of it.
But you told this story on Drink Champs. My ears just perked up like a cat. I was like, okay, now we got some Toronto history on the biggest hip hop podcast. And I heard that story. You were telling it to EFN and Nori, and it was incredible. But now you're on Toronto soil, and we would like you to retell that story from right here in Toronto. What went down on the 401? Where were you coming from? Where were you going? What happened?
We left United Sound in Detroit. About 7 to 8 o'clock.
Don Davis's studio.
Don Davis studio in Detroit. We had just finished the album, Mothership. We came up to Toronto. Gary was living down, what was it? It's Spadina, somewhere around in there. Mm-hmm. We came up, and I was living in Mississauga. We went down to Gary's. He wasn't ready to go. We get, it take 4 hours to get from Canada.
Right.
So we go down to Gary's place, and we coming back from his place, going back to Mississauga, going down 401. Just as we passed the airport, before you get to Burnhamthorpe, we saw like a laser light. Daytime now. This is daytime.
Oh, not night.
No,
that's what it had to be night.
We didn't figure the night that out until like 12 years later. Okay, it was daytime. That's the weird part about this, is that we saw this light in daylight.
Crazy, okay.
That's what's weird about it. Wow. We gets off, and now we're riding down Burnhamthorpe. I don't know how far down,
Not
quarter of
far.
a mile.
Yeah.
Riding down Burnhamthorpe, and it was all farmland. Nothing like I just
Not like
seen,
today.
I just seen it the other day, and I couldn't believe it. It's like farmland right down. The light comes down through the trees, and it hit like 2 blocks in front of us. We see it coming out. That's that same light. 'Cause first time when it happened, I said, "What was that?" Bootsy said, "What was that?" I said, "I don't know what the fuck that was," and we just drove on. Then 3-4 minutes later, it comes down through the trees, about a block and a half, 2 blocks away. And on our side of the road, we driving west. Then it hits in the block that we're in on the other side of the highway, and the third one hits the car on the driver's side.
These are just beams of light.
And when it hit the ground, it splattered like electricity.
But it's like one laser light. Something.
Yeah, like one solid light at first, but when it hit the ground, it pops up and it sparks like sparks. Okay, when it hit the car, it looked like mercury in a thermometer. You know how it bubbles up and
Moving around.
and it rolls off the side, hit the car, and just rolled off the side. Bootsy reached and turned the radio down, because we listened to something on the radio, and turned the radio, and as it hit the car, what the hell? Before we could say anything, street lights. Now we haven't related the fact that we just saw this was in daylight.
Right.
Now all of a sudden it hits the car. We react like the street lights are dimming. They're getting darker and darker. And the car lights is doing the same. It's getting pitch black dark right down Burnhamthorpe towards Bloor. We may be 5 blocks before, 7, 8 blocks before we get to Bloor.
Right.
We see it's getting darker and darker and really dark that you have to slow down. Just as he said, "What was that?" I said, "I don't know. We get the fuck out of here. Let's get out of." And we get to Bloor. Look to the left. You see street lights on. Cars are moving and lights are on. We pulls up into my house. I live on Bloor. Pull up to the house, parking. My daughter comes out and said, "Y'all look like y'all seen a ghost." She said, "Give me a hug. I'm getting ready to go to bed." Now she go to bed at 7 o'clock at night. We never put together that we just got here from Canada, from Detroit, and went to Gary's house. It was going to take 45 to an hour to go down to spend the night and come back. Okay, we never even think about that. All we knew is that something just hit the car and the street lights went out, and we never even talked about it. Neither.
You traveled through a time warp, a cosmic time warp.
About 12 years later, I had thought about the fact that it was in the daylight when we first saw it.
Right.
Why was street lights going out?
That makes
What
sense.
my daughter getting ready to go to bed. We just got there from the studio, okay? And and we left there about 8 o'clock, 7:30, 8 o'clock. This is daytime.
So what did you figure out?
Time was missing.
That's exactly right.
The time was missing, but like I said, I called Bootsy up. I'm on the road. We don't even play together now. I'm call him up and just say, "What time did we get to Toronto that morning?" He said, "We left the studio. It had to be before lunch." I said, "Yeah." I said, I said, "Why was the street lights going out?" He said, "Man, fuck you."
Because the streetlights wouldn't even be on. in the
Wouldn't be
daytime.
on. Okay.
So here we have They Make Kiss Look Like Salesmen, Toronto Star, October 15th, 1978. And look at you, man.
They're reviewing a Buffalo show.
This is a Buffalo show. George Clinton, Dr. Funkenstein has mellowed slightly.
Slightly.
You don't look mellow there.
That was at Shays or Kleinhans in Buffalo. I can't remember which.
Yeah.
Kleinhans.
Kleinhans.
Kleinhans Music Hall. And so I saw this when I was doing my research, and I was, again, just blown away. Wanting to go back in time, wishing I was born earlier, because just looking at the headline, looking at you, and I just love how Toronto rock writers used to be back in the day. They make Kiss look like salesmen.
That's weird because
That you can't get
Kiss-
more real than that.
Kiss and ourselves had the same tailors back then. Larry Legaspi out of New York. But I took my costumes they made for me, and I took it to Detroit to a guy named Tom the Leatherman, and he put all the fringes and stuff on it. This was a regular leather suit with the wings on it. He put all of the attachments to it to make it look like, but we had the exact same ourselves, Patti LaBelle and
LaBelle, right?
LaBelle,
Right.
we all had the same costume designer.
Oh, that's interesting.
Larry Legaspi, he did Cats.
Is he still alive?
No, a few years ago. It was his
And
And didn't you have the same stage designer too, Jules Fisher?
Jules Fisher.
Right, he did your stuff and Kisses, right?
Yep.
But your stuff was better.
Yeah. Oh, the Mothership was definitely.
Oh, the Mothership.
And he did the underwater thing to the Motor Booty.
Right. Those tours were among the greatest things I ever experienced.
But like I said, it was Pink Floyd that when they did that, the Wall and the Big Pig and
Right,
they had
right.
2 or 3 big jazz. I wanted to do one like that, that would last for a while. And it's in the Smithsonian now too.
Yeah.
You go to DC and see it. It's
Is that the second one in the Smithsonian?
Second
The
one.
one you used in Central Park when you brought it back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I imagine a lot of Toronto people would make the drive to Buffalo to go see P-Funk.
If you wanted to see P-Funk, that's the only way to see them then.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this caught my attention because I thought this was incredible because we have the national newspaper, the Globe and Mail. So this was a coast-to-coast newspaper. And I just thought this was an incredible headline with great photos. Funkadelic is psychedelic. Orbiting the outer rim of the rhythm and blues scene, Funkadelic has put psychedelicized soul back into a new wave of hip black identity.
Oh, that's a good one.
That was John Swenson out of New York who wrote that.
Yeah, but it's amazing how this went into our national newspaper, coast to coast, and you guys were on top of the world here.
That's funny because we did a song with Prince called Soul Psychedelicized.
Right, right, right.
And what you're looking at here, so there was a local alternative weekly called Now Magazine, and they would sort of chart what was going on in the city with culture. And what we see here is Now Magazine in the year 2000 articulating the greatest concerts of the last 20 years in Toronto. And if you look at who's number 4, that's the P-Funk All-Stars at the Concert Hall, November 29th, 1989. So according to Now, the 4th best concert in Toronto history of the last 20 years. George Clinton, eager to prove that he was more than just a sample source for hip-hop beatjackers, he led the unified forces of Funkadelic, Parliament, and the Horny Horns through a 4-hour funkathon, leaving the sweat-drenched crowd begging the maggot maestro for mercy.
And the four
That's well
hours,
written.
The 4-hour shows was like some of the best.
How did you have the endurance for 4-hour shows?
Oh man, we did them 6 and 7 in New Orleans at I forget the Tipitina's.
Oh, right.
At daybreak, we'd be playing at
Playing
daybreak.
till 6 in the morning.
People would go home and come back.
And that happened in a later period because during the Mothership times, you weren't playing shows. That were
No, they wouldn't let you play the union. Those were union halls.
Right.
They didn't play that, but when we got back into clubs, and
Then you
things,
really took it.
Yeah, we did that in early days back in the. I mean, we'd be at the Hawks Nest all night.
Right.
When we wasn't supposed to be there, we played. After it was over, then they just jam. Anybody get up on the stage with us? Oh, we said like,
That's 89, so that, I imagine, would have been the first show here after computer games came out.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
Well, it was the first George Clinton show in Toronto, and really since you moved away from here.
yeah.
That whole time you didn't play.
89, 90. Yeah, okay,
So
yeah.
that 89 show is very important
That was
for
a
all
big-
those reasons.
Yeah,
as well.
no, people in
That's
Toronto
right.
had
That's right. When I got with Paisley Park, right?
Yeah.
Right, and look at the company you're in. So, and this is again according to Now, so it's subjective, but you got Nirvana at Lee's Palace, their first show in Toronto, number 1, and that's a whole nother podcast. We'll
Okay,
do.
Rolling
We got the
Stone.
Stones at the Horseshoe. You were there, right?
Yep, of course.
We got the Police Picnic in Oakville.
I was there
Okay,
too.
right,
83.
right.
Then we got you at number 4, and then we have Jeff Buckley, rest in peace,
And
October
Public Enemy.
28, 94.
And I was at the PE show
Enemy.
too.
So 89 was definitely a good year because you could get Public Enemy at the Concert Hall in June and then come back in November for Parliament
Dead
Funkadelic.
Kennedys.
They got Dead Kennedys at the car. So I thought this was a very cool piece to share with you.
I worked with Fela.
Oh, Fela was amazing. When did you work with Fela?
That would have been right around the same time.
And when you say you worked with him, you played gigs with him, or
but he was playing. We was in the studio. I did a song, Nubian Nut.
oh, of course, '84.
'84, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a Fela.
And Fela's on that?
No, that's a Fela song.
Oh, you
but
covered Fela.
That's when I first met him. Mr. Follow, Mr. Follow.
Right.
Follow.
I saw the Nubian Nut tour in Memphis.
Yeah.
At Mid-South Coliseum.
Yeah, but I had just met him then.
Wow, that's crazy.
91.
The colorful hair.
The hair was great.
That was in Paisley Park, a place called the Hair Police.
So that's where you first got the colored hair?
No, not the first place I got it, but it was where it started looking kind of cute, kind of nice.
Right.
You know, it was a place. Matter of fact, the girl was on the set of Graffiti Bridge.
Okay.
She actually, so it was called the Hair Police. They did that one there. Before I had it, you know, the little cap sewn into the top of it.
Right,
with the colored braids on it.
And what I love about this one is,
And then the wigs earlier.
You look amazing. The ad is great. This is 2 years after the previous one. This is 1991. And again, you're back at the concert hall, which we're going to be seeing later. And that's probably, other than maybe Massey Hall in Toronto, one of the most revered music venues in our city. Zeppelin played there. Bowie played there. Tina Turner played there. The Small Faces. And of course, you did 3 or 4 shows over at the concert hall at Yonge and Davenport.
Yeah, is that the one with the Masonic?
Yeah, with the red room upstairs.
Yep. Yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah.
That's a crazy room.
Yeah.
And so this 1991 show also got rave reviews. So this is also from Now Magazine. And, you know, it just goes to show you, this town had a love affair with you. Concert report. Audience expectations were so high that no one seemed to care about the gaping cracks in the grooves and screamed along with Clinton's riotous choruses of "Shit, goddamn, get off your ass and jam." After 3, and what I love how it finishes. After 3 hours of nonstop action, Clinton brought the show to an explosive climax with the anthemic "One Nation Under a Groove" and finished off those still standing with a double-time rip through Flashlight. Now that's more like it. You had the city going nuts.
I remember audiences yelling "Shit, goddamn, get off your ass and jam" before you came on, as a way of
that's the way
hyping it up.
That's how we recorded. St. Louis, people would do that, and then we started doing it ourselves.
Right.
You know, but they would do that before you go on.
I remember Cleveland doing it before you went on too.
So let's enter. Awesome.
I remember this place.
Jerry Garcia. Right over there to the left.
Wow. Frank Zappa.
Yeah. And the people up there on that wall.
I recognize all of them.
The Atomic Dog. Welcome back home,
what
sir.
it looked like.
Does it look like how you remember?
Oh, it looks different.
What do you remember when you came here in '89? What did this place mean to you?
It was like where all the stars had played prior to us. It was, by that time, it was already a classical theater. So getting here at that time was like, man, we made it in Toronto, because we had been here during the early parts of our career on Yonge Street, but coming here, it was like playing at the Boston Gardens after we saw Led Zeppelin there. Oh yeah, I remember the steps.
You were just talking about the Masonic Temple door handles the whole ride here. Is that right?
Yeah, they had all of the insignias.
You're right.
Oh yeah. It still has that old school charm. That.
Yep.
Is this what you use for a dressing room in here?
Yep. Yeah. This was
What a beautiful room.
Hey, baby. Oh,
Pretty close.
Now we're getting to my shit.
oh my God, yeah.
Now we're getting into my shit. Now,
The Breeders' Tribe Called
I was at this show.
Nick Cave, The Bad Seed.
Great lineup.
I'll tell you, man. When Doggy Style came out, and we all got hit. I was 13, and we all got hit with that G-Funk sound. I'm like, where did this come from? This is some cosmic, crazy shit. And this is around the same time Lollapalooza '94 came to town, and just marveling at this lineup. I mean, you know, people in Toronto continue to talk about this show to this day. Any big stories or recollections from that tour that come to mind?
Oh yeah, no, that was like a great tour. They used to do, the audience used to do a thing. They would throw bottles, you know, the plastic bottles.
Right.
They in the sun, you can't tell what it is. It just looked like explosive, and they were doing that everywhere we went, and we didn't know what it was. But I know the Chili Peppers had done it the year before that.
That's right.
You know, and we had worked with them. You know, so that's what broke them. We watched them, and remember the Fishbone
Right.
was there, but they had to leave the show because one of them parents kidnapped them and took them to one of those religious communions.
Try to straighten them out, yes.
And they could, so they actually didn't get to become who they were supposed to become.
They would have been bigger, yes.
They would have been bigger. They couldn't finish the tour. And then we did this one.
But these Lollapalooza tours were incredible, just like all the youth culture and the convergence of rock and hip-hop
Everything.
and dance music and fashion, and then to bring you in because there was all this interest in P-Funk because of the G-Funk.
The other one was, who was it? Which one of them was it? Was it Beastie Boys?
So we got
Beastie Boys are there, Tribe Called
Pumpkins.
Quest.
Beastie Boys was the one that was traveling with the monks.
Yeah, that's right.
They had those
The
monks.
Tibetan monks.
Yeah, Tibetan monks. Yeah, I remember that. The Breeders. Yeah, just seen them recently. Nick Cave.
I just saw Nick Cave last night.
Yeah,
He was here.
So my generation, a lot of them got introduced to you at this show, Lollapalooza, when it came to, it was at Molson Park in Barrie.
yeah.
And then, if that wasn't enough, you came back.
Smoking Groove.
Damn right.
Yeah, that was another. We had the mothership on that one.
That's
Now-
right, you did.
Now, people still talk about this show to this day.
In Cypress Hill.
So, in Toronto, this was at an amusement park called Canada's Wonderland.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
And the actual venue was called Kingswood Theatre. And people to this day talk about how smoked out. It was just,
Oh yeah, it was.
there was just fumes coming out of every crevice of this outdoor amphitheater. But, I mean, just to marvel at these names here, you know, we got you, of course, in the P-Funk All-Stars. We got Cypress, Erykah Badu, The Roots, Fox. I mean, even Outkast on the bottom with Brand New Heavies and Farside. I mean, you look at a lineup like this, you can't even process the talent that you see here.
Yeah, they all became really big after that.
That must have been a special tour for you.
It really was, you know, because it reminded us of the Lollapalooza one, but we had the mothership on it this time. That was really a good one there.
Yeah, amazing.
Wow. Brand New Heavies, I remember them.
Key to Bala, which is actually in cottage country.
Yeah, where was this at?
So this is in Bala, which is,
North?
yeah, it's north, cottage country.
Yeah.
And I think it's on, I might be wrong here, it's I think it's on Lake Simcoe. Oh, it's Lake Muskoka. But the great thing about this, you got to take a boat. And
Yeah.
people were taking boats to see you.
Yeah, I do it now. I'm like, wow.
In fact, I actually have a great story for you about this show I want to share with you. I'm trying to find this show, because this dude was telling me how we went to this show, and it was just wild. Where is it here? Okay, here we go. This is from, on Instagram, The Life You've Imagined. Shout out to them. August 31st, 2002, at Key to Bala, Muskoka. Drove the boat from a friend's cottage and docked at the venue. I was 21, but had first started listening to P-Funk around 13, so was amped to have this show up in the land of lakes at the old dance pavilion on the water. The crowd funked so hard that the old dance floor kept flexing. The band was totally accessible after the show, back of stage. I met Dr. Funkenstein himself and Scheider, the diaper guy. George tossed me his pink stage towel on his way out for a joint with his crew. Great memories. Not Toronto, but thank you for the reminder.
Yeah, I remember this one, yeah.
And I was here with my homie Jeff, shout out Jeff, and we were drinking Heinekens all night.
That was my beer, too.
You were up on stage, and we saw the freak show on stage, and I was 21, and that was the first time I saw you guys, and I was blown away. So I wanted to share this with you.
Yeah, I remember that place up there, yeah.
Now, before we wrap up, there's a couple more things that I'm really itching to understand. Well, one mainly, and that is how you ended up on Drake's For All the Dogs album. Now, I'll tell you, for me personally, it's incredible because we're bridging the gap from old Toronto to new Toronto. And when I had found out that you were actually going to be featured on Drake's new album, I was blown away because this was a few days before that I, by total happenstance, had found a video of Drake's father singing the blues, Crosscut Saw by Albert King at Bloor, Brunswick, handed it over to Drake. He used that video to do the rollout of his album. And then only a few days later, I found out you, who I'd be interviewing, was also on the album. So I'm thinking to myself, there's some cosmic slop going on. Like, there's some crazy shit going on. And so I'm really dying to know, how did that connection happen? How did, this Bark Radio thing happen with you and Drizzy?
Snoop called me. I worked with Snoop all the time, a lot.
Of course.
Lots of different things. And he said, Drake is getting ready to do something about dogs. He said he came to me to do something about dogs. He said, I told him that, hey, I can't do nothing about dogs, and that dog father's in there. He said, so do you mind would you do something if whatever he wants? And so I said, yeah. Because I'm getting ready to do Dope Dogs, that album. I'm getting ready to do a Broadway play on that.
Based on that album, cool.
Based on that album, yeah. So I said, well, he want to do some on dogs. I got, Dope Dogs and blah, 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 blah. He said, well, you can talk with him. He said, I'm going to put you in touch with him, and y'all figure out what we're going to do. He said, I'm going to do it too. So I thought that he might want to do that. So I got together some dog stuff, but then he called me back. He said, I want you to be a DJ.
Snoop said this to you.
No, this was Drake. Once he called, we got in touch with each other. He said, I want you to do a DJ on the album, you and Snoop. And so I said, okay, that's what it is. That's what it is. He said, we got to come up with a DJ name for you and blah, blah, blah. And so I said, okay, DJ Pooper Scooper.
Love it.
And he loved that. He thought that, on Bark Radio, what's on top of the house? Roof.
So Drake personally called you and asked you to be on the record?
No, Snoop called me and asked me. But then once he hooked us up, and then Drake called, and we called him, and he called us back, and we talked back and forth and got together on the things he wanted me, what kind of thing he wanted me to do. And when I did it, he loved it and said, I'm going to do it. I did it and sent it to him. I did a nice version of it. I did it with Make My Funk the P-Funk.
Oh, really?
I did it with that. Dun, 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 dun,
we got to hear that.
Dun. But he didn't use that part, because of the eras and the tone they got now.
Right.
I would love to hear more P-Funk and OVO, chop, not slopped kind of music. I think everybody would love to hear that. It's incredible. And so before we wrap up, I'd be remiss not to at least play the interlude.
Body, with 300, showing off her body. She in love with so, girl, you need a hobby. This is the Star Child, a.k.a.
DJ Pooper Scooper. What's on top of the house? Roof. What's in the top of your mouth? Roof. What's babe name? Roof.
What do a dog say?
Roof. We come to tear the what off? Roof. They raise your tax, we raise the roof.
BARK Radio.
Amazing.
Oh, that's cool.
George, we love you, man. We love you so much, man.
Thanks.
So we're going to wrap up with some final remarks, and I just want to say that we love P-Funk. We love the P-Funk universe,
Thanks,
and it's forever. And we wish you the best. You look great. We hope you come back again soon.
I will.
You got that youthful energy, man. I love it. It gives me energy.
I'll be back.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. And I just want to also quickly say a big shout out to our sponsors, Island Diaz Rum. Thank you for sponsoring. Thank you to the Jean Darlene Piano Bar here on Dundas West for giving us this great spot. And thank you so much to Ruby Soho for helping us eat. I'm Daniel Tate. This is Rob Bowman with the Flyer Vault. Thanks for watching. Peace.
Roof.
Roof.